And welcome back. My name is Mark Johnston, your host for Your Vote, your TV's coverage of the 2022 municipal election. And we have the great pleasure of welcoming candidate for mayor, Lucas Cleveland. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Really happy to be here.
Great, Lucas. So as I said, this is to me more like a coffee shop conversation. We want people to get to know you. Obviously, you are coming in as a candidate. We have Mayor John Henderson also running. So an opportunity for you to share your policy thoughts, your vision for the town of Cobourg, and how you want to get things done. So let me just start off by saying, can you give us a snapshot of where you come from? Who is Lucas Cleveland?
100%. So 7 years ago, my partner Montana and myself and our brand new baby boy Rome moved to Cobourg. Well, we were actually looking for a new place to raise our family. We had decided that Alberta wasn't going to be our home anymore. We were both raised in Ontario, but we had spent a decade in Alberta. And we had decided that we needed a better sense of community, a better sense of a place for our son to grow up that we wanted him to grow up. And so we began a look of almost 6 months across the country. We literally visited communities across the country with our little baby boy. At the time, I was fortunate enough to have a few months off of work. And so we took the opportunity to sort of explore Canada with our son, Rome, and to sort of decide where we were going to live as a family. And my parents just recently moved to Cobourg. It wasn't even on our list. And we just happened to show up to introduce my parents to our new baby boy. And within 2 weeks, Montana and I had already decided that we were going to sell everything we own and invest everything we had into this community. And so that's what we did. And then we came here, and lo and behold, I did some work in the community, and I said, hey guys, what is it this community needs? I have a very diverse background in business and in mathematics, and my partner has a very diverse background in education and HR and policy, and so the community said they needed a fresh green grocer. Yeah. We had no experience. So we just did the work. We did the research. I really worked hard for several years sort of understanding what it was the community needed. And then over the last 3 to 4 years, we have been grinding it out day after day, failing forward, as we like to call it, making a lot of mistakes because we didn't know what we were doing to start. And by listening to the community, we sort of built what is now the Market in Smoor, which we would say is a pretty great community institution. And so sort of that's where we sort of get to today. If we want to go further back, I graduated from Mount Allison University with a political science and philosophy degree. I immediately started a restaurant consulting business directly out of university because I saw a real need for systems and organizations in an industry that just didn't have any, and I didn't do well in an industry that sort of wasn't well managed. And so I sort of started my own company so that restaurants could hire me and bring me in to sort of fix the problems. I was involved in politics throughout my 20s, working with different campaigns, different elections, just started getting my feet wet to what I thought was going to be a political career. Yes. And then I became a little disenfranchised with politics. I felt that the ideology camp sort of was a little much to deal with. And so I entered the world of business, and I started in the oil and gas industry. And I worked a 12-year career in that industry. And it was funny because in that industry, I ended up doing very similar things to that I did in the restaurant world, which was I worked to build teams. We tackled problems that were sort of insolvable. And I really enjoyed the aspect of team building, of changing company culture in an industry that everyone didn't think was changeable. I really enjoyed working to change the way they even solve problems in the oil industry. And working with individuals who have always done it the way it's always been done, yes, to sort of show them that there's a better way sometimes, and that you can bring people along with you. You don't have to force them into the way of doing things.
Understood. That's a great background.
Thanks,
and well-rounded perspective. I appreciate that. So, and it's interesting, I'm reminded of a series that I think it was Food Network used to have called Restaurant Makeover. And I hear in your consulting, you basically provided services to help people do better.
Correct.
So let's now move that over to the realm of politics
100%.
Here in the town of Cobourg, because there's an opportunity for a changing of the guard. Mayor Henderson's been doing his work for a number of years, is moving forward as to move into another term. Let's look at Lucas and what you hope to bring to the town of Cobourg.
Perfect. I think before we can talk about what I'm going to bring, we have to talk about where the town of Cobourg is right now.
Sure.
And I think there is a misconception in the town of Cobourg, maybe of where we are as a community. Mm-hmm. I think I have a really good feel for the community based on the fact that I'm on the ground speaking to that community day after day. Mm-hmm. And I moved to Cobourg for the small town feel. Mm-hmm. I moved to Cobourg for this community and what it is, what it has been, and the potential I saw in this community. Over the last 4 to 8 years, Cobourg has been changing drastically. The people moving here, the available income of the people moving here, the professionals, the young families, this is no longer a small, quiet retirement community. And so I speak very highly of Mr. Henderson and previous councils. I think the councils of Cobourg have done a good job with what they were working with. Yeah. But I think Cobourg is in a period of massive transition. And this is no different than any other towns, small towns that experience massive growth, whether we're looking at Scarborough in the 70s, Ajax in the 90s, small, beautiful little towns that just blew up without control, without a plan and without a vision. So I don't want that to happen to Cobourg. And I think we are in a period of transition that needs a different way of doing things. And so what I'm offering the town of Cobourg and what I'm offering the voters is a very clear choice, because that's how democracy works. Right. When we have choices. It doesn't work when there's just acclamations. Fair. And so I needed to run because we needed to have a democratic race. And I needed to run because the town of Cobourg needs to make a decision. And that is, are we going to keep operating the same way we've always been operating, which has worked well till now, in a brand new situation? Or are we going to look to elect and into council and into the positions of mayor people who think a little differently, who have experience running multi-million-dollar companies, who have experience streamlining processes? Because what I'm hearing across all spectrums, across all interest groups, across all constituents, is this feeling that Cobourg just isn't reaching its full potential. I don't necessarily know what that full potential is, but I know I'm really good at systems. Okay. And I know I'm really good at processes. And if we're going to reach our potential, we have to make sure that the town of Cobourg, the council, and the community at large is working together to go one place. Yes. And so that's where someone like me could provide a lot of usefulness in the position of mayor. Okay. I might not advocate this special cause or that special cause. That's not what I'm good at. Yes, what I'm good at is operations, processes, and holding to account with both transparency, accountability, and honesty. In business, I have learned that progress is way more important than perfection. Fair point. Because businesses need to constantly make mistakes to learn. As a business owner, when I ran the market, we insisted on mistakes. And we would never, ever punish a staff for making a mistake. Because that means they made a decision. They chose something, and we've learned from it. Now, that also has to be done, of course, in the context of management principles and never allowing employees to make such mistakes that they bankrupt the business, et cetera, et cetera. Yes. And that all comes to the company culture. But I think in government and in politics, we really need to start thinking about progress over perfection. How is our town staff going to get better at their jobs if they don't have the ability, length, and width given to them to learn those mistakes? Okay. How are council going to make good decisions if we're not making lots of decisions to find out which are good ones and which are bad ones? Okay. And I think that is what I can offer to the town of Cobourg, is a different way of doing politics.
Great to hear that. Thank you for that. When it comes to, let's imagine you're in that seat, it's the first day of the job. Of course. What are the first 2 or 3 things you're really feeling need to be focused on?
Oh, there's only one thing that needs to be focused on: getting everyone on the bus. Yeah. I think what we need to do in this community is really decide what we want to be. Okay. I think there are a lot of really passionate, intelligent, and vested community members in this town. And all of them have a really great vision of what they think Cobourg should be. But no one's done the work of bringing them all together, coming to a consensus of what this town can and should be, and then drawing a vision of where this bus is going to go. Interesting. And I think number one is coming to a consensus by doing the hard work to make sure all the varied groups in this community, and there are hundreds of them, I know they're speaking to me daily, about all of their concerns. And before we can get to figuring out all the nitty-gritty details, we've got to figure out where we're going and what it is we want to do. And so when you say, what's my job first and foremost is to lead council. And the way you lead council is by getting everyone to agree to what we're trying to do first.
Understood.
And that takes a lot of work in and of itself. You'll notice on my platform and on my webpage, I don't make a lot of grandiose promises. I accept that team building is some of the hardest work you'll ever do.
Okay.
It was really easy to change profit and loss statements in the oil and gas industry. It was really easy to adjust policy or principle. What was hard was getting everyone on a project to see the problem the same way, to come together on suggesting solutions. And there's the really big one, that once the consensus had decided and moving forward is keeping everyone on that bus until we learn something.
Interesting.
And I think that's what my job is as mayor. My job isn't to fix homelessness. My job isn't to fix the environmental. My job is to make sure people who know how to fix those things have a seat at the table and have an equal voice so that we can take into everyone's account and start making baby steps in the right direction.
Great to hear that, Lucas. And how do you get everyone on the bus? I guess you just touched
Trust.
on that at the tail end. Trust. Okay.
Teamwork and trust. It's called leadership. You get everyone on the bus by being a really good leader. And what does it take to be a really good leader? No ego. It takes a humbleness to admit you don't know what you're doing, and that's okay.
Right.
It takes honesty, because the second you're not authentic and honest, no one's following you. What does it take? It takes years of trust building. And I think I've put that in this community.
Okay.
I think that this community has seen and has heard through the grapevine the things that Montana, myself, and the team at the market have accomplished for some of the lower socioeconomic members of this community, for people elderly who have accessibility issues, during the COVID time, the way we stepped up to ensure there was food. I've put in 4 or 5 years of work in this community to make the community a better place. I'm literally running for mayor to make this community a better place.
Yes.
It's okay if people don't choose me.
Right.
That means democracy worked.
Right.
And so I think the way you get people to join your team is by being a really good leader, by being really honest, and the way you're honest is by being accountable and transparent.
Wonderful.
That's really important. And I think there's room to improve in the town of Cobourg on those fronts.
Excellent. Well said, Lucas. Thank you for that. On that note, we're going to take a short break. This is a great start already. We have a whole other segment coming up.
It's exciting.
Thank you. I'll say, please join us in a couple moments. We're taking a short break here. This is Your Vote, Your TV's coverage of the 2022 municipal election. I'm Mark Johnston, your host. And we have the great pleasure of having Lucas Cleveland here, candidate for mayor in the town of Cobourg. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm Mark Johnston, your host for Your Vote, Your TV's coverage of the 2022 municipal election. We have the great pleasure of having Lucas Cleveland here, who is a candidate for the mayor of the town of Cobourg. Lucas, thank you for what you've shared already.
Of course.
Moving forward into our second half here, just want to explore some territories and fine details of what your thoughts are.
By all means.
The challenges and opportunities here in the town of Cobourg. Talking about budget in particular. What are your thoughts on how to step into this role as mayor and move things either in a new or keep what's working and change what needs to change?
Okay, great. I think this is good to look at in the sense of what I could bring to the position of mayor in that role. So I think it's first good to talk about the budget of the town of Cobourg. A lot of people don't realize that Cobourg is a $60 million a year business. This is not your small corner community anymore. This is $60 million of revenue that the town of Cobourg collects. Now, we have an expense sheet of between $28 and $32 million, give or take the year and the individual costs. And when we're talking the budget, I think that's really important to acknowledge that the budget is the most important part of what we put out in the community. And what I mean by that is the budget is a direct reflection of what we as a council and we as City Hall, Town Hall have decided is priority. And I think the budget is not talked about and spoken about in the community enough.
Yes.
And I think that's human nature.
Yeah.
It's really easy when council says, say, we're going to buy 10 ladders and it's going to cost us $25,000. Everyone's arms go up. Well, how are we spending $25,000? Because we can fathom $25,000 and what a ladder should cost.
Right.
So as constituents and as community members, we're very on top of numbers like that. But when you start talking about $28 million in spending,
Yes.
$9 million towards safety and protection, what is it, $260,000 towards social programming. And we start looking at the variances of that, and people are like, well, I don't understand how homelessness isn't being addressed, or I don't understand why we're not making enough priority. Well, that is a direct reflection of our budget spent.
Yes.
You work on and you fix the things that you put money and effort towards. And again, let's wrap that right back into it. We haven't built a consensus in this community about what our priorities are.
Right.
And so I think we should speak to that in vision. When you've got a vision of where you want to go, let's use the bus reference,
Right.
and you're getting everyone on the bus. The way you get them on the bus is by selling where you're going.
Right.
Hey, we're going to go to this place. And what's really great about vision and momentum is that once you're on the bus moving, everyone that's on the bus gets to decide how we're going to get to that destination. And we're not so much focused on the next turn, we're focused on where we're going.
Well said.
What you're seeing right now, or at least my opinion of what you're seeing right now, is no one's on a bus. We're all standing in the intersection and we're all trying to argue where we're going. And so the first place we can do that is in the budget. But before we do that, we have to understand what the community is looking for. And we have to do the hard work of getting the community to agree
Yes.
as to what we can do, because we don't have unlimited resources. We don't have unlimited, we as a town can't borrow money. We have to live within our means,
Yes.
which means that if we want to spend more on homelessness, then where is that money coming out of?
Right.
What isn't going to be a priority? Because with town staff, with town time, with council time and energy, with the money we have to be very selective with the projects we take on so that we can be successful in the projects we take on and not start 30 of them and take none of them to completion.
I appreciate that.
So that's what I would say. When you want to look at specific budget items, I'm not here to talk about them. I've never been the mayor, and I haven't had the opportunity to speak to the placeholders who know more about the budget.
Understood.
What I believe my job is to get into the position and then do what I do. Listen to everyone and see the patterns.
Understood. Thank you, Lucas, for that. So I feel called to ask the question. Mayor Henderson's been driving the bus for a while. You're looking to move in and drive the bus for the first time. How would you drive that bus differently? If you could summarize that for me.
I'm happy to talk about it, but I don't want to talk it in a juxtaposition of the way John does his job. Again, anyone who steps up for civil service, I have the utmost respect for. Anyone who puts their name, reputation, and family on the line to do what's best for their community. Again, I don't want to speak ill of John. So when I speak, I want to make sure that it's what I think I can do differently.
Yes.
Because I think John presents a really good way of running a town if you don't want to change. But I don't think that's what we want as this community. I think we want to control the change.
Okay.
And so what my job, or what I see as being different, is I see my role as the mayor as a very fixed term problem. Everyone here has their issues that they want to address.
Right.
Everyone has their ideologies. I stay clear of the ideology game. My job, and what I see my job as being, is stepping into the role of mayor and doing 4 years of work of consensus building, vision building, and doing effective management of council and council's oversight in setting policy for town staff.
Okay.
I believe council should be making the decisions and then setting policy to hold those decisions to be followed through.
Okay.
It is the job of council to provide vision, and then it is the job of council to set policy. And it is the job of council to hold town to account for the vision and policy they are trying to drive. It is not the job of town and council to get involved with the nitty-gritty intricacies of running the town.
Okay.
It's the job of town and council to ensure that all residents' views are held, that all residents are on the bus, and that the bus is heading in the right direction, that the driver knows how to drive it.
Understood.
It's not the job of mayor and council to get in there and fix traffic lights. And it sure as heck isn't a good use of town resources, council time, or energy to be debating things about doors to be locked, or to be debating on how we're going to solve the climate crisis, or how we're going to fix homelessness in Canada. Yes, I want all of those things fixed.
Right.
Yes. But that's not what council's time and energy needs to go to. It needs to go to things that, as I've said, make Cobourg a better place to live for everyone. And so Yes, I want to live in a community that takes care of its homelessness. But let's not start the question with how are we going to fix homelessness? How are we going to make sure John, Betty, and Daria, who live on the street that we all know, have a better quality of life? Because that's something council can affect. But trying to tackle homelessness, that is it is just insane, the complexity of the problem. And again, we have $30 million to run this whole town.
Right.
The government of Canada can't fix homelessness.
Right.
Let's have some realistic expectations of what we expect our elected officials to do. I think it's fair to expect that I make the town a better place. That's how I would do it. I want to make sure the town council focuses its energy, resource, and time on the actual things that town council can achieve.
Okay. Some great details there. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
In terms of getting into that seat on that first day, how do you decipher between what to keep moving in the direction it's currently moving and what to either radically or softly change as you feel needed?
That's really easy. I have a team of council members to work with.
Okay.
That's why it's a team.
Yeah.
The way council is set up and the way the mayor's position is set up, we don't have strong mayor. That's a good thing. I am just a vote on council. The only position I have is that of a designated leader. But just because you're called the leader doesn't mean you get to be the leader. So when you're talking about how do I make sure, again, I don't know, and I'm happy to admit that. I'm going to turn to my councillors who all have a varied interest. Hopefully the electorate elect a variety of different insights. The way we sort of decide what to keep moving in is by communicating with the community,
Yes.
by getting that constant and regular feedback, by making decisions, and then going, hey, everyone, did that work for the majority of you or no?
Right.
Yes, no. Okay, it did. Cool. What worked about it?
Yes.
So, again, I don't want to get into the nitty gritties. I'm happy to. Like, do we change the town policy on affordable housing? Maybe.
Yeah.
Let's get all of the police involved. Let's
Yeah.
get all of the homeless involved. Let's
Yeah.
get all of the municipal, and have them teach me what we should be doing.
Sure.
Again, to be a good leader, you have to be humble. To be a good leader, you have to have a lack of ego.
Yes.
I learned a long time ago that I'm a jack of many trades and a master of none. And that's a really good thing because it allows me to understand things enough to get a hold of it.
Yes.
And also to acknowledge, oh, there's all these professionals who know way more than me.
Fair, yeah.
Maybe I should talk to them and learn a little thing or two.
Very good.
So yeah, that's how I would do it. I would look to my council, I would look to the community, and I would ask that the community trusts that they've elected a leader who doesn't think he has all the answers and who has always gone to his team to find out what the team needs to do to solve problems.
Okay, thank you for that. I feel called to ask the question, that moment when you decided to run, what was that moment? How did it happen and how did it feel?
Okay, it was really interesting. So I have been pushing for about 2 or 3 months now, several friends, people I know in the community and previous councillors to run for the position of mayor. I've always been involved in politics, but kind of behind the scenes. I kind of say things the way they are. I don't always have the polish per se that's needed to be an electable official.
Okay.
And so I've always enjoyed sort of being the guy behind to support. On the Wednesday before the cutoff, I received 2 phone calls from people who I were really hoping that they would eventually run. And they just informed me that today was not the day and it was not their time. And so I appreciated their past services. And I turned to my partner, Montana, who was sitting there with my son, Rome. And Montana said, I think it's time you take what you've done at the market and multiply your effect in the community. And then I turned to Rome, and he's 6 years old, and I said, Rome, what do you think? And he said, Dada, yeah, why wouldn't you?
Wow.
And I was like, there's my son, and I had to show him that when we want change, that when we want things to be better, you sometimes got to step up yourself. And so for me, it was this sort of aha moment, watching Rome go, yeah, Dad, why wouldn't you? And just completely dumbfounded at the idea that I was even thinking about not running. I was like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm going to set an example for him. And I think the other thing was I realized that I had nothing to lose. That win or lose, Cobourg's going to be better for me running. Now they have a choice. And at the end of this election, Cobourg has made a decision to keep things sort of the way they've been going and on the same path, or to shift the path and let's try something new. And at the end of October 26th, Cobourg's going to be better off because John has been out there sharing his ideas. I've been out there sharing ideas, and between the two of us, Cobourg now has some options. So yeah, it was an aha moment because it was my son, and he's just like, yeah, why wouldn't it? And I want this community to be amazing. And so if I can even just contribute by running for office and contribute to that, well, then I'm going to do that, and I'm happy to do it.
Okay, excellent. We have about a moment left. Just want to open this up, as I like to do often, Lucas, the idea of, have we missed something? Is there something else burning in your heart you want to share?
No, I think I'd like to share maybe a little tidbit about myself. I think a lot of people see me as sort of like the market guy and the outgoing, chatty salesman. I'd like people to know that there's a whole history behind the market. Heavily wrapped in corporate financing, heavy business play, massive culture building operations within the oil and gas industry. I might not look the part, but I'm actually a bit of a math nerd. And while I enjoy the extreme sports of skydiving and skiing, what really gets me going is solving problems. And I think this town could use someone who solves problems.
Excellent. Well said, Lucas. Thank you for sharing
You're
that
welcome.
as we wind down. Best of luck in the journey and the election process. I want to say to our viewers, we had a great opportunity to have Lucas Cleveland, who's running for mayor here in town of Cobourg, share from the heart. And best of luck to you.
Thank you so much for your time today. Have a good day.
This is your vote on your TV, your municipal coverage of the election here in 2022. I'm Mark Johnson.